The New York Mets need to add an ace this offseason. Who is their best bet on the market? I'll break down the options on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so the New York Mets have to add a lot of starting pitching this offseason. They have Luis Severino and Shamanai, who both just hit free agency, as did Jose Quintana. That is a ton of innings that you have to make up. You will have Kodai Senga to headline your rotation. You hope he should be healthy next year. David Peterson proved himself to be a starting pitcher that you could pencil into the rotation. You have Paul Blackburn. You have Tyler McGill. You got Jose Budo. I think if those three are competing for a fifth starter spot come spring training, that's a job well done by this front office to at least, build out the depth. Ideally, maybe they are all competing for a sixth starter spot or some bullpen roles where the Mets really do address their rotation and add three arms this offseason. We'll see how it all works out, but they have some depth. They don't have a lot of front line depth. It really is just Kodai Senga, and that's about it. David Peterson is not a frontline starter. Brandon Sproat might be one day. Is that day going to come in 2025? He sort of doubted. He's still a pitching prospect. So, with all of that said, the Mets should be in the market for the top arms in free agency, and there are three guys that I would categorize as tier one aces. Pitchers that you're going to sign to a huge deal that will take the opening day nod for you for hopefully 3 to 5 years, depending on the free agent that we're talking about here. It could be as many as 7 years on the contract, but you're looking at a window of their primes where they're going to help you win and win right now. So those three names, you got Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, and Max Fried. Those are the top three free agent starters on the market, and Corbin Burns is ahead of the pack as the absolute best pitcher available. 2.92 ERA this past season, 194 and a third innings pitched. Since the 2022 season, the last 3 years, Corbin Burns is third in Major League Baseball in innings pitched, and he has a 3.08 ERA, seventh best in the game. He is consistent. He is just 30 years old, just turned 30. He's going to get a bag. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was $35 million per season over a 7-year deal, which you break out the math, that's what, $245 million on a 7-year contract. I think that's sort of the baseline. MLB trade rumors projected that he's going to make $200 million over 7 years, but that has him checking in at less than $30 million per. And I really don't see that. I think this guy's going to get paid. Scott Boras is his agent. They could drag this thing out. Who knows how long it takes for Corbin Burns to sign, but he is the guy that if you sign come opening day, you feel the best about his ability to lead your staff, not only when it comes to being an effective pitcher in regards to ERA, but also being an absolute workhorse for you. Corbin Burns would be amazing on the New York Mets. I am not going to say anything to the contrary. There is some that believe that Burns is in a relative decline. Obviously, you look at what he did in 2021 when he won the Cy Young, and you look at the expected ERA and the strikeout rate and how his pitches are moving. That was probably Corbin Burns at his best. But since then, he has learned how to really be a dependable starting pitcher that can take the ball every fifth day and really eat up innings on top of doing it effectively. So, yes, you might look at the cutter and it doesn't break the same way it used to when it comes to horizontal movement. What I'm looking at is the guy that pitched to a sub-3 ERA and he nearly got to 200 innings pitched. That's unbelievable. With that said, you're going to have to give up comp picks if you want to sign him. He got the qualifying offer from the Baltimore Orioles. What does that mean for the New York Mets? They would have to give up their second and fifth highest selections in the upcoming draft and they lose $1 million from their international bonus pool when it comes to signing players in a minor league free agency, the international prospects. It's a lot to give up for Corbin Burns. On top of the contract, you're hitting your draft capital and your international spending. Is it worth it for an ace? Absolutely. But there's another ace in the market that doesn't have the qualifying offer attached, and that's Blake Snell. Blake Snell is probably the second best starting pitcher in the market, but I think you're splitting hairs between him and Max Fried. For Snell this past season, 3.12 ERA and 104 innings pitched, but he really struggled in the beginning, didn't get a normal spring training, had to shake off the rust. In his final 14 starts from July on, when he was healthy and himself, he pitched to a 1.23 ERA, and that's on the heels of a 2023 season where he won the NL Cy Young and pitched to a 2.25 ERA and over 180 innings. Blake Snell is absolutely disgusting. I think just based on pure stuff, swing and miss ability, just nastiness. I think Blake Snell is on a short list of being the best pitcher in baseball, just when it comes to pure stuff. When you look at durability, the ability to eat those innings, Corbin Burns, I think, is a better bet and a better pitcher for the next 3 to 5 years, probably. With that said, Blake Snell has potentially a higher ceiling because when he's on, he's just not giving up runs at all. At all. And if he went on one of those heaters in October, he could be the guy that leads you to a championship. He's 33 years old, or will be next season. So a little bit older, probably doesn't get a contract that's much beyond 5 years at most. And I could see it being a high AAV, shorter term deal. So it might be, 3-year deal at, $40 million plus. I'm not sure exactly how high it goes, but he's worth it. And you're not going to give up any comp picks for him. The more I look at this market, the more I like Blake Snell. I liked him last offseason, but now you have another year where I think he proved it, right? Yes, you could knock him on the innings pitched again. Oh, he's only on 104 innings pitched. Here's a guy that it's been the 2 Cy Young seasons where he got over 180. And other than that, he really struggles to take the ball for 30-plus starts. And I get that. It is a fair concern. But what I look at is a guy that had a really rough start to the season. And you saw the other side of the coin with Jordan Montgomery, who struggled mightily. Blake Snell struggled, and then he got himself right, and he was himself again, and he snapped out of it, and he pitched to a low ones ERA. I like Blake Snell a lot in this market, especially because there's going to be more risk attached longer term with Corbin Burns or Max Fried, because those guys might get the 7-year contract that I just don't think is in the cards for Blake Snell. If Snell gets 7 years and he's 33 years old right now, yeah, you stay away. Even a 5-year deal would concern me a little bit with Blake Snell. But if you can get him on a 3 or 4-year deal, high average annual value, so it's a big salary, I think I like Blake Snell the most. Max Fried's another good option, though. He'll turn 31 years old for next season. 3.25 ERA in 29 starts. That was 174 and a third innings pitched. There's been some attachment to him about being an injury-prone pitcher. That was really just 2023. He's been very durable beyond that. Career 3.07 ERA. Max Fried's a dog. He really is. I think the one hesitation I'd have with him, the qualifying offer attached, so giving comp picks to the Braves, that's sort of a bitter pill to swallow. Also, I just don't know if Max Fried is going to want to go from the Braves to the Mets. Maybe he does. Who knows? But to me, the most likely of the three, I think it'd either be Burns or Snell over Fried. Corbin Burns, you'd imagine David Stearns has, I'm sure he holds Corbin Burns in a pretty high regard. Never signed him to a contract extension, though. So, that's partially because Scott Boras is his agent, but also maybe there's concerns about how Burns will age. I really don't know. It's tough for me to pick between these three guys because they're all so good. I think Blake Snell's the guy I want the most, but Corbin Burns would be an amazing addition. If the Mets decide to prioritize Burns and they re-sign Pete Alonso, they don't end up with Juan Soto, it's still an unbelievable offseason. So you can't go wrong with any of the three. I think Blake Snell, because there's no qualifying offer attached and because his ceiling when he's on is best pitcher in baseball. I like Blake Snell a lot, and that's, I think, who I would target if you are going to shop at the top of the market. But the Mets don't have to do that. They can shop more in the middle of the market, and they can find some value in other places. That's what we're going to talk about next. The tier 2 aces that are available this offseason. We'll go through it. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And again, you throw a $5 bet down on something you just know is going to hit, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get that opening offer. You get started at $150 in bonus bets. You win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Stay up to date with all the latest in the world of sports when you check out Locked On Sports Today, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to get to 11,000 subscribers very soon and get to 15,000 subscribers by opening day. I appreciate all of you who help us reach those goals. Let's talk about tier 2 aces. Probably more number 2 starters to Kodai Senga, but guys that you could sign that could help headliner rotation that you feel pretty good about. And this group includes Sean Manaea, Jack Flaherty, and I threw Nathan Eovaldi in there too. But we'll start with Manaea, the guy we're all familiar with. He's entering his age 33 season. He's projected to make maybe a little bit north of $20 million over a 3-year deal. I know MLB Trade Rumors had him at 3 years, $60 million, which is a no-brainer. If that's his market, if he tests the waters and that's the best he can do and he comes back to the Mets, there's no way you don't match that. I think that is a steal for Sean Manaea based on the season we just saw. Yes, overall in his career, he has not been an ace-level pitcher, but he was down the stretch for the Mets, and I think he found something, dropping the arm angle to match what we see from Chris Sale. It worked for him. He's a big dude who can rely on that fastball. He's got a good mix with the improving changeup, the sweeper. He's a good pitcher, and I'd love to see him back in a Mets uniform. If there was any bit of doubt, one of the biggest things I'd be concerned about is the fact that he really wore down in that NLCS, ran out of gas, and you just have to wonder what are the effects of this guy pushing his arm further than it's ever been pushed before. That's a valid concern, and it's kind of messed up to run up the mileage and then have him sign elsewhere, but it's also a business. So I do wonder how the Mets are viewing Sean Manaea in this market. I think they'd like to have him back. He fit in that clubhouse like a glove. He became a fan favorite. I want to see Manaea back in a lot of ways. Of all these free agents that we were talking about on the show today, I think Manaea is the one I'd be the most excited if they signed, either him or Snell. But if you sign a top-of-the-market ace, you pay top-of-the-market prices. Sean Manaea, a lot more affordable. If you're telling me that it's going to cost potentially double, right, to get Blake Snell over Sean Manaea, if Snell commands $40 million per, and he has every right to ask for it, Zach Wheeler's about to start making $42 million a season. So Blake Snell could get upwards of $35 million, all the way up to 40 plus. If Manaea falls in the $20 million range, I think it's a no-brainer. Could his market get crazy where people are looking at the prices of Burns, of Fried, of Snell, and they're all starting at $35 million per, and here's Sean Manaea sitting $10 million cheaper? Maybe there's a team that does give him $25 million a season. Maybe he gets a $3 or $75 million deal. Maybe there's a team that goes to 4 years. I don't know. We always get surprised by some of these contracts. Sean Manaea might get paid in a pretty significant way. And if it does get crazy, if it stretches beyond 3 years, I'm okay with the Mets just collecting the comp pick. They get a draft pick after the 4th round. That's not the worst outcome. I want Sean Manaea back, but at a certain cost. If it's beyond 3 years, I'm balking. 3 or $75 million, you could probably talk me into it, but it's still a huge raise for a guy going from $14 million to 25. I mean, it's big time. Did he earn it? Absolutely. Will he get it? To be seen. Next, got to talk about Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty was great against the Mets in Game 1, not so good in Game 5. Against the Yankees, he was great in Game 1, not so good in Game 5. What kind of playoff pitcher is he going to be moving forward? We really don't know. He did show the ability to get big outs on the big stage. He just wasn't consistent doing it. Overall, though, unbelievable season for Jack Flaherty to just rebuild his value. 3.17 ERA and 162 innings pitched. Just turned 29 years old. So he's got a chance to potentially get a 5-year deal at least. That's where I get a little bit more hesitant on Flaherty. There is no qualifying offer attached, so that is really nice. But it's still a gamble for sure. You're betting on a guy who just had a career year, and prior to that, he had a 4.99 ERA in 2023. Did he figure it out? Is that slider going to continue to be as good as it was this season? It could be. I would not be mad at the Mets sign Jack Flaherty. I don't think he's high up on my list, though. Actually, funny enough, I think I'd probably prefer Nathan Eovaldi, which sounds crazy, but he's going to be 35 years old next year. You're probably talking about a 2-year deal, so you're really paying for what you're about to get. Last season, he had a 3.80 ERA and 170 and 2/3 innings pitched. That was in 29 starts. 2021, or since 2021, he had a 3.76 ERA in 606 and 1/3 innings pitched. He's just been really solid. You look at what he did in the playoffs in 2023 to help the Rangers win a World Series. He had a 2.95 ERA in 36 and 2/3 innings. He pitched in 6 different games, had 6 starts, went 5-0. It was unbelievable. And in 2018, he was great for the Red Sox too. A 1.61 ERA in the playoffs and 22 and 1/3 innings pitched. Really did help them in a massive way. The 2-time champion who thrives on the big stage, I like Nathan Eovaldi. I think you'd have to pair that with another big signing or a trade. Either you just go into next year with Senga, Eovaldi, Peterson, Blackburn, McGill, or even signing someone who is a prove-it guy, a prove-it deal, whoever that is. To me, if you're going to sign, a couple different guys, you need guys that you can trust to hand the ball to in a playoff game. And Nathan Eovaldi's that. So I like Eovaldi a lot. I don't know if he's necessarily atop my wish list, but I have him ahead of Jack Flaherty in my mind. Ranking these starting pitchers, I want to see the Mets sign. Number 1, I would say, is Sean Manaea. Number 2 is Blake Snell. Number 3, probably Eovaldi. Granted, the best possible pitchers they can sign, that's a different list. I would say Burns, Snell, Fried. Then you get to Manaea, probably Flaherty, Eovaldi. And of that group of 6, Flaherty and Fried are the 2 that I feel like are either not likely or not the best use of resources. For Flaherty, I think it's just not the best guy to sign. For Fried, I just don't know how likely it is. But that is the overall outlook of the free agent starting pitching market. Could the Mets get creative and visit the trade market, though, to add a potential ace? We're going to go through that to close the show. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. I went to a Heat game last night. Waited till I got off the Brighton line. I was walking towards the arena. I pulled open the app, found the best possible deals. And I used Game Time Picks to filter out the fluff. So I wasn't scanning through thousands of tickets. It was just the best possible deals. Looked through them, found the seats I wanted, saw the view before I bought them. 2 taps, I was all set. Had the tickets in less than a minute. Then I'm walking into the arena to go to the game. If you want to go to a sporting event or any other live event, make sure you check Game Time to see what the prices are. You might just find the best possible deal. Down the Game Time app, credit account. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. If you're an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, I think there are 3 aces that could be on the trade market this offseason that I would be pretty much all in on. Obviously, it depends on the prospect capital you have to give up. But these are pitchers that are making a lot of money where you can help the opposing team in taking some money off of their books. So we start with Pablo Lopez. Pablo Lopez, you might remember for his time with the Marlins. He's been with the Twins now. He got traded in that Luis Ariz deal. He's been great throughout his entire career and particularly in Minnesota. This past year, he made $8.25 million. That contract that he signed, a 4-year, $73.5 million deal, it's about to skyrocket when it comes to what he's making per year. From 2025 through 2027, the next 3 seasons, Pablo Lopez will earn $21.75 million a year. Now, that is a contract that hamstrings the Twins a little bit. So I could see them not necessarily being eager and shopping Lopez crazy, but if you approach them with a good offer, they might just sign off on it and send Lopez to you. And that would be a really nice fit for the New York Mets. This past year, he pitched to a 4.08 ERA and 185 and a third innings pitched. But you look a little bit deeper, first half, he had a 5.11 ERA, second half, a 2.77. You're talking about a guy who throughout his career has been sort of 3.5 to 3.8 when it comes to his ERA, and someone who can give you a lot of innings pitched, guy that's familiar with his division and all the ballparks. I kind of love the idea of trading for Pablo Lopez. I don't know what you have to give up, and that's obviously a huge part of this conversation. But I feel like the Twins are still in win-now mode enough where some of your pieces that are maybe extra depth at the big league level for you might be very attracted to them. Maybe they like Tyler McGill. Now, they're going to do Tyler McGill for Pablo Lopez straight up? Absolutely not. But let's just say you throw in Luis Acuna. And that's sort of the basis of the deal. And I have to really think through exactly what that would mean. But overall, if you're just talking about one big prospect and a Tyler McGill type pitcher to give them a guy to replace Lopez in their rotation, I feel like you got to make that trade because you're going to get a guy that can be your number 2 to Kodai Senga for the next 3 years. And I think he could be very successful in that role. 3 straight years of 180 innings pitched, by the way, for Pablo Lopez. Now we move on to Luis Castillo. Luis Castillo, not the guy that dropped the pop-up. Talking about one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's in Seattle on a 5-year deal. He's going into year 3 of that 5-year deal, where overall he'll make $108 million. The last 4 years of the deal, he's set to make $24.15 million. He already got one of those checks or series of checks this past season, so he's got 3 years left at $24 million and change. Also has a $25 million option for the 2028 season. That will turn into a $5 million option for the club if he misses any time or 130 days consecutively of time on the injured list with a UCL injury. So you're protected against Tommy John. It's a pretty nice, deal to inherit. Not crazy money for Luis Castillo. I like it a lot. I do. I feel like he would be a really nice option that you can just trust to give you a ton of innings, pitch to a relatively low ERA. They have a lot of stars in that rotation. They got Logan Gilbert. They got George Kirby. They got Bryce Miller. They got Brian Wu. They need to get bats for their team. So if you're the Mets, maybe you can leverage some of your, prospect capital, or a guy like Brett Beatty, potentially the centerpiece, that you can send over in a deal. You fill it out, and for the Mariners, they get off of a big contract, and they maybe get, 3 pieces to help them this year. Maybe it's Beatty. Maybe it's a trade where you have to give up a David Peterson, which would hurt a lot. I don't know. I really don't know what exactly the cost would be to get Luis Castillo, a guy that's been at the top of his game for the last couple of seasons and just one of the most consistent starting pitchers in baseball. That's obviously a tough ask to pull off a trade like that, but I think the Mets can get the job done by giving the Mariners those pieces to potentially get right back into the playoff mix this upcoming season. So I like Castillo a lot. Third guy to talk about here, Sonny Gray. And we did mention him a little bit on the Nolan Arenado episode I did a couple weeks ago. Sonny Gray making $75 million, only made $10 million in 2024, so he still got $65 million owed to him. That is $25 million in 2025, $35 million in 2026, with a $30 million option that includes a $5 million buyout. That's a full no-trade clause. It's a big contract, particularly over the next 2 years. You're inheriting, what is that? $60 million or $65 million guaranteed, which is how they figure out his AAV. So his AAV would be crazy high for the Mets. It's a name that I feel like you have to mention because the Cardinals are already said to be shopping him. But the fact that he's going to turn 35, actually, as you're listening to this, I think this will probably be Thursday's episode. I'm doing some pre-recordings. Thursday's his birthday, so he'll turn 35 as you are all listening to this. Coming off a good year for sure, 3.84 ERA and 28 starts, 166 and third innings pitched, 3.51 career ERA. 2022 he had a 3.08. 2023 he had a 2.97. He's been awesome, and I definitely think he'd fit when it comes to the top of the Mets rotation, but the contract's a little bit crazy for me. And you look at Pablo Lopez, that's only 3 years left anyway. You look at Luis Castillo, that's only 3 years left anyway. Sonny Gray has 2 years left, but at a heavier average annual value that might preclude you from doing some other things. Who knows? It's Steve Cohen's money. If he wants to spend it like crazy this offseason and go back in with another $350 million payroll, I'm happy with that. I'm sure all you are as well. We'll see how it all shakes out. Overall, we talked about 9 different pitchers on the show today. If the New York Mets can somehow land 2 of them, a round of applause to the front office. That'd be amazing. If you get Sean Manaea and you trade for Pablo Lopez, that's a great rotation. Might not be the sexiest on paper, still a great rotation. And when it comes to the cost to sign Manaea and to trade for Pablo Lopez, it might be the same cost to just sign Blake Snell. So that's where, to me, when I look at the top of the market, while I would love it if the Mets spent there, because why not, right? You're still going to get to watch whoever it is. You're not going to think about what they're getting paid if they're shoving deep into the playoffs. Who cares? But with that said, I do believe that the market at the top might just get to a point where it's not really worth what you're going to pay to get one of those guys. The middle of the market where you can find a Nathan Eovaldi, you find, of course, Sean Manaea, even Luis Severino, Jack Flaherty. Those guys on a more affordable contracts might be the better fit. And then you go out and you trade for an ace. The Mets have a lot of options at their disposal this offseason. That's why it's going to be so much fun. I think the starting pitching market is very healthy. We'll talk about some guys that are more depth starters, middle of the rotation and beyond, where we can go through some of the lesser known names that are still in this market. But if you're looking for a frontline pitcher, it starts with Corbin Burns. It goes to Snell and Fried. Then you got Manaea. You got Flaherty. You got Eovaldi. Any of those guys is a boost. Any of the trades we talked about also another boost. I'm just excited to see how David Stearns goes about building the rotation, because if you talked to me a year ago, the last thing I would have thought is, it'll be Sean Manaea and Luis Severino as the 2 free agent acquisitions. But that's exactly what the Mets did. So now you see what they have moving forward and how aggressive they are at filling what I believe is ultimately their biggest need in free agency. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You can also be a Locked On Mets insider if you find the link in the episode description. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first watch every day or first listen. Now, if you're a second watch, Head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything the world of sports. We're talking about Locked On Sports today with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.